it turns out like the modular equations here, like the congruences that we just talked about, share lots of similar properties with like normal equations. So first, let's go through some of the basic ones. So if I have like A is congruent to like B mod M, which is what we started off in the beginning, it turns out we can add or subtract or multiply the same thing on both sides. So I can like subtract 5 from both sides. I can say A minus 5 is congruent to B minus 5 mod M. So like I can add both things to both sides. So I can say like A plus like 1,000 is congruent to B plus 1,000 mod M. So that's like pretty intuitive. Like we can do that like normal algebra. We can add or subtract things, the same things on both sides. We can do the same thing with modular equations, modular congruences here. We can also multiply the same thing on both sides. So for example, I can multiply both sides by like 7. So I can say 7a is congruent to 7b mod m. So we see that addition, subtraction, and multiplication, we can do all of those things in with these congruences, but it turns out we can't like exactly do division. We can kind of do division, but we would have to be like really careful. Like for example, I can say that like 6 is congruent to 2 mod 4, right? Because 6 leaves a remainder of 2 when divided by 4. 2 also leaves a remainder of 2 when divided by 4. So 6 and 2 are congruent modulo 4. But if I were to divide by 2 on both sides, let's say, like if I divide by 2, then I would say like 3 is congruent to 1 mod 4. But this is not true because 3 leaves a remainder of 3 when divided by 4. 1 leaves a remainder of 1 when divided by 4. So it turns out we cannot do this. So we cannot like divide by 2 on both sides. It turns out you can kind of do division in modular arithmetic if you also like divide this inside number here by 2, then the statement would make sense. But just know that whenever you're like doing like modular arithmetic with like division stuff, you should be like very careful because it can be very tricky to divide stuff when you're doing modular arithmetic. But like addition, subtraction, and multiplication all work out just fine. Yeah, so those are some of the basic and important properties of mods. So now let's also talk about like a few more properties that relate like multiple systems of congruences. So let's say instead of just one congruence, A is congruent to B mod M, let's say we also had something like C is congruent to D mod M. So now we call this like a system of congruences. It's kind of like a system of equations in algebra, except instead of like equations, we have congruences. So again, it turns out we can do a lot of the same stuff as we did in normal algebra. Like for example, we can add these two, like we can add both sides like we normally do with equations. We can say A plus C is congruent to B plus D mod M. We can also do subtraction. So I can subtract these two congruences. I can say like A minus C is congruent to B minus D mod M. I can also multiply them. So I can like multiply them together. Like we can also do that in normal like algebra. We can say A times C is congruent to B times D mod M. And again, we always have to be very careful about division. We can't like exactly like divide these two congruences all the time. So just make sure like you know these three properties. Like division is very like tricky in modular arithmetic. If you like don't do it correctly, it can like give you wrong results. And an important like thing to notice about these properties is that it relies on these two moduluses, like these mods here being the same. They're both M in this case. If I said like A is congruent to B mod M and like C is congruent to D like mod N, for example, like just a different variable, then like I cannot do this addition stuff. Like these properties listed here like only work if like the things listed inside the parentheses like mod something if they're the same. Like for example, I cannot say like if A is congruent to B mod M and like C is congruent to D mod N, like different variables here. I cannot say A plus C is congruent to like B plus D like mod, I don't know, like M plus N. Like this is not a property. So like just be careful whenever you're using your like modular arithmetic properties, like these addition, subtraction, multiplication properties, you always want to make sure that the two mods that are listed here are the same value in order for you to be able to use these three like properties here.